This is going to be another flip through of my journals for 2014. This one is a cloth covered journal, and I found these through Julie Faith Van Balzer, who started me on this journey. I believe they were ordered through Amazon. It's a 10.5 by 8.5 grand portrait, and it has really thick pages. And as I started art journaling, it was more like a record of what you did for the day. And you put some paint and washi tape and start keeping a record of your year, but I got very little art in it. There's drawing and stuff, but from there I went just to arting, not so much journaling. And this is kind of packed with all kinds of stuff. This was a life book lesson that we did with found words. We drew with our non-dominant hand. This was a little tag I did. We were doing exchanges. And then this is one of the life book lessons. And I didn't do very many of those in this book, but I just grabbed whatever journal was available. This is more of the life book lesson. Again, I just put it in here because I found it and it needed a place to live. These are washi tape. You stick down and then you try and find a find object or find an object in the found tape. This was a bod lesson that, it gives me nightmares still. And then these are big nightmares. In soul food, I did a lot of firsts this year, and this was a palette knife picture, and we were not supposed to worry about details or how it looked, and this one looks pretty scary. And again, I always put one upside down, and this is her. And it's full of texture, it's full of color, but definitely no finesse with that. The second one is some kind of pastels, and again, I was new, and it was very, it smeared. So I tried coating it, and it's got a lot of texture, and then this was some prompt for something. It seems completely out of place, but that's what I did last year. I just mixed and matched everything. This was done, I believe, for studying under the masters, and it was just a painting. This one I need to finish, which is my goal and my word for 2015. These were some fun images that I did in a life book lesson, I believe. And these are just extra ones because people asked me to. I drew her with the cigarette, and somebody wanted one with a drink. I've done a few of these, a small series of these. This was just a drawing, actually from the mortuary where our little boy is buried, and this stands at the front of the burial spot. And for some reason I was playing with stencils and colored pens, and it almost looked like a stained glass window to me. So they're kind of together there. Most of these don't match. They're not full page spreads. Again, some out of the place prompt for one of the classes. That was a brief class on, you were given a prompt to just use 2 colors or 3 colors. And for some reason I was into rubber duckies because the colors were yellow and blue. This is another painting that I worked on this year. And this is another painting. This is charcoal, and this is another learning curve for, it's actually the compressed charcoal. It smears, but I've sprayed it with a fixative. And I know a lot of people don't like fixatives, don't want it to be sprayed. But otherwise, if you keep them in a book, it feels like you need to cover each page. So I just sprayed them as I went along. This one is acrylic paint, limited palette, bright, bright purples, and then another charcoal. This one was for studying under the masters, and it was using gesso and water-soluble pencils, and then I added a little color. And of course, that's one of the subjects that we did, and it was freedom. This little journal I picked up, it's just a sketchbook. And when I started my second studying under the masters, we did people. And the first one was Vincent van Gogh, and this was a picture of him when he was young. And I sketched out the people we were going to be studying under before we actually started playing with the paints. This one is Pablo Picasso. Some of these I had never heard of before, and this is one of them, Max Beckmann. He does a lot of dark, heavy, solemn pictures, paintings. And again, I had never heard of Brett Whitley. Fascinating man from Australia. We studied some of his work. And then, of course, Frida Kahlo, which there's such a huge following of hers. It was so much fun to see the different aspects of her life. Another tragic story. And then the last one in the series was Mary Blair, who worked for the Disney company. Another person that I really had never heard of. There may be one more. Nope, that was it. So this book is, I'm going to try and finish in 2015, which is my goal. This was a class that we did in Lifebook. Mine looks probably nothing like anyone else's because I just kind of went off the deep end with it, but it's just pencil and leaving white space. I believe there's some either charcoal or pastel to get the whites back, and it's just messy, messy art. This was one of the Studying Under the Masters pieces that I did. It's The Woman Knitting by Van Gogh. And what we did in the class, we were presented artists and pictures to try and copy, and we could do whatever we wanted, but initially we selected a picture and the teacher would paint it and we would try and follow. This one is the postal picture that's very, very famous, and I drew it and somehow I never got to it. I think because our instructor painted it in oil paints, and I had no oil paints during the class. I have since bought so many oil colors, so I may go back and do it, but what I've read and heard about oil paints is they need to cure and set for maybe months at a time before they're actually dry. So putting it into a book is probably not a good idea. I may just color it with acrylics, which are my favorite right now. And then these, I should have put the artist of who I drew after, but this obviously is Picasso, and his patterns and colors. He went through a lot of different stages. I wish I'd put down the name of the painting and the master, but a very dark, limited palette of this woman, I believe, on a train. And then these are Beckmann, and this is a self-portrait that Beckmann did, and his were bright colors and yet kind of a dark subject. And we were copying a picture that he had already painted. This one is a Brett Whitley. I didn't do very many Brett Whitleys. He did serious work, and then obviously this one, it just caught my eye because it was so colorful and it was funny. It's called The Lebanese Grin, and it's obviously by the sea. He had on this brightly colored hat, and it looks like he covered his nose to protect it from the sun, and yet it somehow looked like a fish on his face. And then he's got a stain, a grin, which I guess that's where the title of the piece came from, The Lebanese Grin. This is another copying or studying under the masters, and studying under the masters is, to me, that's what it was. It's copying somebody else's work and practice to see what they did, what their colors were, and how they framed a photo, or a portrait rather. This is Whitley, and he made this picture in motion, and it was, I'm sure, very famous at the time, and it looks as though he's just going through time. That was a fun experience. And then a Picasso, just, we were to make our own Picasso with the double faces and the colors and the prints and the bright colors, and I just sat down with some markers one night and went to town. This is the lady from Disney, and I've already forgotten her name. Mary Blair. And she did a lot of the Disney movies, and I really enjoyed this little painting. I didn't do very many of her work. In fact, I think I only did 2. This one was just a copy from my Journal 52 prompt, and I cut out a page in this journal, which I don't usually do, but someone asked me if they could purchase a painting, and it was of this lady. And I said, well, she's in my journal. She said, well, I said I could make a print. She said, I'd rather have the original. So I made a print. I cut it out, made a print, and then I decided to stick her back in here because she originally came in this journal. And then back to studying under the masters. This is one of Frida again, and it's from a photograph. These are just doing my portraits, trying to do different things. This one's just from a magazine. This one is also from a magazine. Trying to be a little more loose and combine some chalks and charcoals and paints. This one is all acrylic. And this one also is just 2 colors of acrylic. And then I added a little tiny bit of detail with a charcoal marker. This one also is acrylic paints, and this one's acrylic paints. And as I look at them, I see all the flaws, but that's what painting is. You practice and you learn. And then my last painting for this year was these adorable little girls. The mother asked if I painted people, or specific people, and I said, well, I could try. So this is a copy of the painting I did of these 3 little girls, and I sent it to them, and they really enjoyed it. So I'm so happy I could do that. And that's the end of this journal.